What happens to an outspoken woman? Why are we so uncomfortable with women having political views? How do you deal with a sexless marriage? These are issues that are plaguing 90% of women in India, no matter how successful you are, how confident you are, how independent you are. But women aren't talking about it because they don't know where to go. You need a safe space to do this. A safe space you can have these conversations without feeling that somebody's judging you.
Hey everyone, welcome to Maharani Talks, and I'm your host Mahati Rangarajan. My guest this week was a primetime anchor and a well known business journalist who had interviewed eminent people such as Warren Buffett, Indra Nooyi, Christine Lagarde, among many others. Shaili Chopra is an award winning journalist who also covered the horrific 26/11 Mumbai terror attack. She quit at the peak of her career and decided to launch a women only platform when she witnessed conversations concerning women are considered niche. And hence was born SheThePeople.tv, considered to be India's largest media platform for women's voices. So, what has been Shaili's biggest challenge? How can women's stories take center stage? Let's find out. How have you been holding up? I think you're in a hill station somewhere from what I've seen on your Insta page.
That is right. I have been living my life in the hills. I keep saying that I'm now a Kumau Gao girl for the moment. So I'm really privileged because I think I managed to get out of the pandemic and come up to the hills in Kumau, and I've been since then living here in a decent amount of isolation. But I have to say, it's also been a process of self-discovery. I feel when you're completely alone, nature often reminds you what all needs to be brought back into your compass, and how you need to rework your Venn diagrams. So yes, I've been doing a lot of that, saying hello to nature.
That's lovely. You actually have a connection with Chennai. You studied here, right?
Yes, Chennai is my second favorite city in the world, and I say second favorite because Bombay is hard to not make your first love. But I have amazing memories in Chennai, and I studied there. I was there as a young student. It's not a very friendly city for students.
Okay.
And back then, when I was there was a lot more politics in full display, which probably is true today as well. But there was also, this Eve teasing bit that used to go on. But I feel like I loved the city despite everything that I saw. Just the fragrance of the flowers every morning. I travel in a bus to college, or just eating at one of the bhavans. Oh my God, I still go back there and feel completely comfortable. And there's something to be said about the simplicity. Despite the kind of opulence people are endowed with, they don't show it off, and that to
Yeah.
me is just something to be said about. Yeah.
Okay. So, did you always know that you wanted to do journalism? Your father was in the Indian Air Force. Did you ever think of doing something in those lines?
So I was never fond of flying. I'm still not. Although I do feel sometimes looking at all those drone shots, I might give gliding a chance. But never really been somebody who wanted to put myself through any of the defense forces or, for example, become a pilot. I was always somebody who wanted to be a journalist. There was something completely fascinating to me about how people went onto television and read so much news. So initially, I was very curious, how did they read it? And then one day, when I had a chance to go behind the scenes and see how they read off an auto cue or what they know and how they go down to reporting stories. It was just mind blowing. And the possibility that I can do the same thing every day with a new story. There was something powerful about mastering something that offered a new piece every single day.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you anchored the show? What did it feel like that day?
It was a real accident. And that's why I feel that I was just made for this, because I went on to the screen and they said roll, and I rolled. And, it was just like somebody was absent. And I was 6 months into my internship at CNBC, and I just got confirmed as an employee in a market which was pretty lousy for journalism back then when television hadn't had its big boom. But what was really interesting for me was like my editor said that go get ready. So I said that, but I've never really practiced this with you. He said, I mean, of course, I was trained to do it. So it's not like I didn't ever learn how to sit in front of a camera and not feel intimidated by the lenses or whatever. I had trained for that in Chennai, actually, with the BBC and Asian College of Journalism. So when I had done that, and I had been one of my toppers of the class, so I knew what it is to just roll.
Okay.
So when this came by accident, the first thing I told myself, just go with it. It's the opportunity you've been waiting for. And this was a sports update. Back then, CNBC did its business bulletins and ended it with a 3-minute sport update. And I had this very senior colleague who was sitting next to me. And, there was a funny moment because it was like an India-Zimbabwe match. And the back-end editor had said, read the live score. And I had no idea where to read the live score from. Okay. I left the number for the score blank. And I literally looked at television and I'm telling my editor there, tell me what this is from below the screen level. And this one just like scribbled something off on the paper. And I was like, okay, and I believe the score is this. So because it wasn't live television those days as much as it is now, one was safe trying to refer to a paper with the score. But it was just easy breezy for me. Yeah. And again, I don't want to sound like immodest, but there's something that you plan to do all your life, and then you get that one chance at it, and I did not want to mess it up. And the minute I finished that, I got a call from the group's head, the chairperson, saying you're anchoring from tomorrow, and that was it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. So that was great. And I must say that one of the things about journalism back in the times that I was journalist in a trainee journalist was the fact that you could not get away with a superficial level of understanding of things. You had to have known what you were going to talk about. So I obviously was an economics honors graduate. I knew what it is to report on stocks. I knew the difference between a stock that belonged to the telecom sector versus that belonged to, let's say, tea and beverages or something like that. So I think, there's no taking away from your ability and your gift of the gab, from the power of knowledge that comes with it, and how that gets displayed in your ability to anchor.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
The research matters, definitely.
Yeah. And doing it over and over again matters a lot.
Yeah, I agree. You joined broadcast television at a time when it was opening up in India. So what was that climb like for you? Did you feel at any point there was some biasness against women?
So I'll take this question in two parts. The first part, of course, that I think the journey towards opening up of television in India and me being in the thick of it was literally a moment that was unleashed for India from a television standpoint. I felt that I rode the wave like few others did with Indian television opening up. I was the first person to get placed in my college of 65 students. I got a permanent job at a time when no jobs were available. And that was the sad and telling scenario before the television piece opened up. But the good thing was that, then it became a rocket ship. People hadn't seen so many channels come up. There were so many opportunities. Anchors needed, so many reporters needed, so many editors needed. So it was beautiful. I mean, it was a race of credible organizations, credible journalists building credible, models of news. And I was very, very fortunate to be part of that. Today, it's a very different scenario.
Yeah.
Also, thanks to the new kind of technology that we're using for television, you don't necessarily have that much of a stringent offtake in terms of licensing and, lots of other issues that used to come as, making it happen was hard back then. Not easy to get your credibility today, but certainly get the technology piece right it's a blueprint now, right? Whether or not it was bias, so when I hit the television moment of my career, I was unstoppable after that. I just knew I literally had to take this baton and run. I mean, I didn't necessarily have too many people to pass the baton to because I was too early in my career. But that said, there were very few business journalists. And that made the role of those who were there both challenging as well as exhilarating. One, that you had all the spotlight for women who were economically smart from point of view of knowing what economics is, how business and economy functions. Some of us had done our deep end courses in it and knew what we were talking about. The second part of it was that there weren't too many women who made it to the top,
Yeah.
but it started a trend, right? As it is, business journalism was mostly dominated by men. And like most media organizations, the middle and the lower management, middle and the lower journalist sort of positions were taken up by women. But we did see stuff change. A lot of us who back then had started out then went on to become the lead faces of different channels, and then, of course, set up our own businesses and so on and so forth. So I think there is always, bias is contextual in the times that you live. Those back then were difficult times for women, but like I think I discovered, like the wind beneath my wings were like three men who led the organizations that just said, "Come in and take over, right? Be the face." And I think that has something to do with people recognizing what women had to offer, and I think lots of other women would have similar stories. But today, I think things have changed a bit. I would believe that lots of women are saying, "Why work for somebody else in the first place?"
Yeah, that's true.
Look at you.
Not really, yeah. Do you miss it though?
So I never miss it. And I will tell you why. Uh, I have had a tradition with myself of leaving my jobs when I was at the peak of them. When most people thought that she is out there, how lucky, right? And I would not blink an eyelid to leave those jobs. Yes, it's a position of privilege to say that I didn't have to be the sole earner in the family, but I was an equal earner of my family. And I made my calculations and I chose to leave when I felt that I wanted to experiment with something new. I have always been excited about being in startup mode permanently. There's something new, that I want to do. And even within broadcast, I first left CNBC to join NDTV when they were starting out with their business news back in 2003.
Okay.
And then when I quit NDTV, I went and joined ET Now, which was again a brand new channel on from the Times Network for business. So I joined them. So essentially, there's something really exhilarating about starting new things and building them up. And I think, that's something that just makes me tick. So when I quit ET Now, took 2 years to like roam around the world with a mobile phone and see how people react to recording video on it or talking to it.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that experiment really worked for me because it reminded me that your credibility did not depend on your face on the big screen.
And this was pre-Instagram, pre-TikTok, before people were comfortable putting their phones in front of their faces.
Yeah, so this is pre-selfie, okay? Pre anything selfie mode. I think the selfie, of course, came after Obama spoke about it. I think at Nelson Mandela's funeral in a very big way. When was it? I'm not sure. Was it? I think it was the funeral. But he and many other world leaders took a selfie, and then everybody was like, "What is a selfie? What is a selfie?" But yes, so basically, my experiment was in the pre-social media, in its current form days. There was only Twitter, and I was part of it in 2007, I think. Yeah. So Twitter was a big reason why I started to feel that social media had a game. And then I realized that news is something that will be very democratized as we go. And any person with a phone could be a journalist of some sorts.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so I think those 2 years of research really helped. And it also helped that I went down to just literally spend my 3 months in the United States covering the elections to see what's happening in the United States. And just like seeing how an election is covered in the US versus India, where I'd already covered several elections. I think some of those kind of learning curves mapped on the digital journey that I'd undertaken made it very, very exciting. And then I came back and said, yes, I can set up a channel from anywhere, including the hills, as you can see now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Are you happy with the way TV journalism is at the moment or where it's headed?
So the way I would put it is luckily my happiness doesn't depend on it. Otherwise, I would be really uneasy about things. I think I do have an opinion on today's television journalism, broadcast journalism, but I also feel that it does get an unfair share of criticism because I feel like there are great broadcast opportunities out there and platforms out there doing a good job. But thanks to one or two of them who are like sort of the bad apples of Indian media today, everybody's clubbed together, and whenever somebody sees you, they just think that you were the one who deserves to be told all the grouses against media, so it's like a vicious cycle. But I also understand this impatience among users and viewers. The good news is that thanks to the advent of digital and the concept of digital TV, you don't really care so much about what a mainstream television channel has to offer. That's why I feel that it's important to note the kind of work that is being done, by outfits such as She the People or many others who are doing focused area content.
Yeah.
Is to look at how we can broad base this opportunity to offer good quality content for those who are looking for it. Right? It is not. It's not a comet in the sky. It's a targeted plan, and that's what works.
Okay. What was it exactly about your experience as a journalist that made you realize something like She the People TV was necessary?
It wasn't just my experience as a journalist within media, it was my experience as a journalist outside of media as to how skewed our world has been, how gender skewed our world has been and is actually. When I decided to start She the People, it was literally like, so I have a little booklet that lies next to my bed with a pencil. It's like for all those ideas that emerge in the middle of the night for me, and I shut my eyes and just scribble them so I don't forget them by the time I wake up. Right. So this idea had not come to me like that, but the term She the People came to me like that. And then I realized that I could really pack in a beautiful story based on what the Constitution says with the term We the People. We can't be We the People unless She the People is a part of it. Right.
Yeah.
So I think what was really critical for me when I decided to set up She the People was to recognize that India, despite its massive diversity, is full of very, very strange kind of biases against women. First, they come from their gender, and then the biases emanate from positions of power, casteism, where you belong in the hierarchy, which homes do you live in, what part of society do you hang with, which car you come in. I mean, it's almost like there is a complete flow chart for how people who should be respected and talked to will follow. And this is so tragic at many levels. So, yes, when I walked into CEO rooms and said, oh my God, everywhere there's a CEO in a jacket suit with a position of power, we're wielding sort of this macho sense of why he deserves to be there. And all the women, if at all they are headed there as well, are meekly apologizing for their success. What's
Yeah.
wrong with us? Like, why? And I was raised in a very, very sort of open-minded household, and I think one of the things that I still thank my parents for, I can disagree with my parents and agree to disagree and have nothing against each other, right? This is something very few people do. This has nothing to do with how rich my parents might be or not, whether or not they belong to upper or low caste. It's just about having a mindset that says everybody deserves an opinion and a voice of their own. So I think because I was raised like that, I was fearless. I walked into organizations and I saw my bosses who were mostly men, maybe all men. I've never had a female boss, sadly. I would have loved to have that experience. I would just go and say, listen, I'm done with this. I'm 24. I'm ready for my next leap. Find me something else to do. Right. And there was a time I still remember Vikram Chanda at NDTV telling me, Shaili, I have no more place to left. Now, when I'm ready to leave this place, you can come and sit here. Right. This was when I was an NDTV prophet. And I was like really getting I was like, hassle, like, we need to move on. And the reason I'm telling you about myself in this is because that was the first kernel of where women get stuck. If I was like, okay, now I am feeling breathless to move on. I want to be unstoppable. I want to go to the next level. If I am feeling this in a seemingly media balanced, women balanced or gender balanced org, what's happening to the women out there? I mean, nobody even bothers to listen to them, their desires and their ambitions and their promotion requests, their sponsorship requests, and all of that.
Yeah.
So I think increasingly I felt that there was a major gap in our country in not being able to give women a platform to speak up. We just expected them to wallow in their silence. And that's how She the People was born. A platform where women not only get to know about what other women are doing to break barriers, but how are they speaking up for themselves? And I think that to me was the most powerful piece of this.
Okay. So when you started it, what challenged you the most?
The most challenge came from women who felt that women didn't need a women's platform. That was my biggest challenge.
Really?
Yes. So I think there was a constituency of women, some of who have certainly changed their mind, who came from a really strong position of privilege and felt that if women really do deserve a place in the world, let them fight it out. And I was like, you can't fight it out when you're not on a level playing field.
Yeah.
Let's get to the level playing field. Then let's fight it out in the world of equals. Let's not try and pretend that this is an equal world. It's a fair world. You have gender pay gaps. You have gender gaps in hiring. You have gaps in how much and who can speak up. Who can speak on whose behalf? The number of times men speak on behalf of women, it's a joke,
Yeah.
right? I mean, like manals are a great example of that. You can't be telling me that women's vaginal issues must be discussed by like a 15-member male panel on health and nutrition and maternity. So I think the challenge here for me was, how do I overcome that constituency of women who constantly make it harder for others to go and fight their own battles, whether by speaking up or in silence? We don't need women to judge the others. We don't need women to make other people's battles less important by saying, hey, you know what? Nobody ever stopped me in my journey.
Yeah.
Some of us are really lucky that they did not stop us in the journey, or we shut somebody up if they tried to. But what about all those millions of women who are not so fortunate? How do they go and shut up such scenes around them? If we don't stand up for them, if we don't give them a place to go out there and share it with us and encourage them to go out there, then what is the point of this damn privilege we have?
That's true. Yeah. But do you find women are shy of wanting to talk about themselves
Yes.
or putting themselves out there?
So I think there are two things to it. There are women who are not willing to put themselves out there for reasons that are societal, reasons that are personal, reasons that are emotional from a health standpoint. Like some people are so beaten down because of how they were raised, right?
Yeah.
When we finally meet them, as you and I, it seems like, they're in the now. But what about their past? If they were raised to shut up about the man or the tutor who molested them, or if they were told that if your uncle acted funny with you, you should ignore it and live with that uncle like the rest of the family did in a normal way, or if you were criticized or sort of taken away from in terms of your education or wi-fi access or any such things, and it was handed over to your brother, how do we know the pasts of these women? So I feel that whether or not women are quiet, they speak up, or they're shy is a great factor of where they have come from in terms of the journeys they've lived. That's why I'm not, I feel like nobody quick to judge them. But I do feel that women who do speak up or find others to speak up for them, they have realized that sisterhood does help. And that's why on She the People, we have this sisterhood network where women just connect with each other, find ways to access, find ways to get emotional support, find ways to talk to each other, and also talk about things that are considered taboo.
Right.
Or are considered really front and top for women to go through, like what happens to an outspoken woman. Why are we so uncomfortable with women having political views? Why should women have to deal with sexist remarks in WhatsApp groups? How do you deal with a sexless marriage? These are issues that are plaguing 90% of women in India, no matter how successful you are, how confident you are, how independent you are. But women aren't talking about it because they don't know where to go. Who do you go and talk to? Where do you go and talk?
Right.
Right? You're not going to put this on your Facebook page. You need a safe space to do this. That's what She the People is. A safe space you can have these conversations without feeling that somebody's judging you.
Yeah. Of lately, there has been a lot of platforms, especially on social media, where women's issues are being voiced, topics that are usually considered taboo. What steps are you taking to differentiate yourself?
So there are people who are talking about it, and then there is a platform. I think the way She the People has built itself is that we're a platform. We're touching 200 million a year, right? We are not a sporadic blog. I mean, I believe that all these blogs in some way or the other fall into the She the People universe. There are different women talking about it, there are different networks emerging. All of that is great. But there is the need for a platform that is scale and talking about this at a global level. And I think that's what She the People is. To us, it's the more the conversations, the better it is for the sisterhood. We never feel that, any more conversations coming on this dilutes our purpose. I really feel this is what worked for men. It worked for them that everybody, everything, every conference, every newsroom, every boardroom was talking about them.
Right.
Today, if every little drop adds to the larger ocean, it's great. The biggest piece for She the People is that we are not a blog, we are not an individual social media page, we are a platform. We do this at scale. We take you from your cause and we blow it up into the community, the world, everybody who needs to see you. So I think that's the most critical part. I never feel threatened, and I never feel uncomfortable by more platforms emerging, because I simply feel there's a lot to say about the need for more of these in general. The fact that we are the first mover and have established our presence, and all these platforms would like to work with us, is something that really works. And then the second part is that, when you're a first mover and you've established your credibility, you can't establish credibility overnight. Okay, no matter what. So we worked ourselves in days when people used to question, why do women need a separate platform for themselves? And so we know what it is to go through that, and I think that's what our community rewards us for.
Okay. Earlier, I spoke to a woman entrepreneur in one of my earlier episodes, and she said how getting funding as a woman entrepreneur has been a big headache for her. Did you face that as well?
So I really don't normally go out there to seek funding. I'm trying to actually build a platform that doesn't have to depend on an investor's whim. I have been very fortunate to have one anchor investor in Anand Mahindra,
Yeah.
who is not only a fantastic industrialist, but he is a feminist and an inspiration at many levels, not just to me, but I think to a lot of people. I also feel that women are getting bogged down by this funding race, all the time wanting to run after funding. I increasingly am aligning with people who say, build your business model and then find somebody who can fund it for you. So I feel I used to get a little anxious about it at the start. And then I realized it's not something that I really think is required, because one is that funding ties you in just as much as it gives you scale. Two, if you really want to be the master of your business, experiment with it, try what works, push boundaries, and see how you can do something new with it. So I feel that if that is an inspiration, funding will come. Yeah, funding will come and go like many other things. I mean, how many of us remember startups from 2001?
Yeah.
Do you remember them? They all were funded, and I can bet that the ones to go down first are the funded ones right now. I mean, just look around us. WeWork, what a drama. How much funding did they have? Somebody remind me. Like, I'm not making generalized statements, but I just think about this a lot. Women find funding difficult, yes, but women are also people who can really push themselves to experiment with business models. Somehow, I find this very hard to say this without sounding discriminatory, but the point is, I find that women are innovative business models. Men are not. More men I speak to, they have that one business model which is called fundraise. Okay. Yes, it's got its benefits, it's got scale and all that. But at the Digital Women Awards, which we do like every year, the number of women entrepreneurs I find are doing breakthrough stuff in their communities, in their micro communities, with children, with education, with ed tech. They're doing this despite not getting funding, or getting small funding, or family and friends, or whatever.
Right.
Point is that they are doing what they want to do. Funding is not a starting point, everyone. It's not a starting point. It's an enabler in your journey. If you make it happen, it happens. If it doesn't happen, don't kill yourself for it. Just don't kill yourself for it. And yeah, so far as the bias is concerned, it's there because majority of the people who are investing are men. That's what needs to change.
Yeah.
So through your podcast, I'm very happy to tell anybody that anybody is looking for investments as a woman, please reach out to me. I will see how we can help you out. uh, with raising money from other women.
That's great. Yeah. You know how digital media is constantly shifting. Have you ever felt you had to unlearn what you had picked up earlier from, your days on the old guard? How are you constantly learning and relearning?
I did not have to unlearn from what I picked in the old guard. I had to unlearn what I learned yesterday. That's how social media is. There is a constant change in social media. Only thing that I would say I've been fortunate with is that I haven't done a foot in mouth yet, or I think I haven't. Which is that I said something back then in social media, and my digital imprint is here to hound me. But I think social media as an idea has got to change based on technology and what algorithms do to it and how you need to react to them. But there's a fundamental idea behind why social media is so popular. Yeah, and when I wrote the first book in India on social media called The Big Connect back in 2014, and I analyzed what politics and what businesses were doing with social media, one of the most important things to me in that was you don't do social media. You are social. You be social. So there's a big difference between how you approach social media. 90% of the times, I find people are pushing for social media because they need to do it. It has to be done. It's a chore, tick mark. You can't do it. You've got to be social, whether you're a brand or a person.
Yeah.
Please remember that. So I feel that there's some things that change because of the environment of tech. Some things don't change because of the reason why they exist. The philosophy behind social media is to leverage connections. That hasn't changed at all.
Yeah. Also, now nobody is really paying for content. With social media, everything is there at your hand. How do you think like independent or investigative journalism can thrive when social media is pretty much pervades everywhere?
So I think I would disagree with your first statement. I don't believe that people don't pay for good content. I pay for a lot of content. I feel that a lot of others pay for content as well. It's about what you can offer that's different from the others. Okay. So that's about paying for content.
Okay.
Second is that I think if you're not paying for content because you think that it's on social media, I think if it's everywhere, then that content isn't the content you should technically be looking for, right? Because if you're reading what everybody else is, how are you in any case different? Go find content that's worth it, right? Third, I think life cycle of independent journalism. I think it's actually finally coming to a point where this is becoming sustainable because people are finding patrons who can support independent and investigative journalist projects, and that is to me a big a plus point on how various organizations are able to capture either a specific mindset, specific market, and then build on it in a big way. So I think it's all changing for the good now.
Okay, that's great. Could I ask what a typical day is like for you?
I'm a mom to two. I'm a I'm a very ambitious person. Uh, and I wouldn't say I don't compare my ambitions with others, but with myself. I have goals every day. It's a horrible thing, but I do, and I'm not able to get rid of it. And then I've stopped getting rid of it. So a typical day for me is like I start really early in the mornings, especially since now I live in the hills, to take a walk by myself. It's me and my music on my phone. I spend a lot of time listening to good music because that sort of pumps up my day. And for me, that's very critical. If my day pumps up in the morning, then I know where it's going through the day. I'm that sort of person. And then I come and spend some time having tea. So one of the vices I have is that I've developed this really late in life. I'm not a morning tea person, like in a traditional way. I don't need my tea to get started. I need my tea to have an experience. So I love tea, and I have an English experience out of it on my own, with all the works in it.
Okay.
Of course, I have a very busy work schedule. I recently turned 40, and my main goal is to become a drummer. And I have been taking drum classes for a while. So I do plan my drums classes and practice through the day at some point.
Oh, nice.
It's a great stress buster. It also sort of revives my imagination cells. So in the middle of my day, I get down to playing a little bit of my drums. But yeah, I think we have a lot of editorial meetings through the day. I do a lot of heavy lifting from the afternoon down to the night. I catch up with my colleagues and see what's happening in the world of media. And yeah, and of course, running a digital business outside of being an editorial person is quite a lot of work. As I discovered when I became an entrepreneur, is that it's okay to be an editorial person, but there's something that you have to do as an entrepreneur, whether it's about understanding more about policies, what will happen to digital media regulation, or what will happen to the business, where are the markets going, all of that. So I think that does help in terms of just wanting to keep up with your learning curve. Yeah. And then I read a lot of books, as you can see, a lot of books.
What are your favorite books? What are you reading currently?
So at any given time, I'm reading like 4, 5 books. They're all very mood oriented, so I pick them up now and then. I have been reading a lot of Alan de Botton. That's about life and philosophy, love, relationships. I'm not a very big fiction person, but I have picked up a few good books by Tayari Jones, who's widely read and writes a lot more about Black people relationships and their lives. Very, very nicely written books. I'm in the process of writing a book on women and the economy.
Okay.
So I do a lot of heavy lifting, research oriented economic books, which I have gone back to after college. And you'll find me doing scores of underlining and things that I read. So, yeah, I mean, I think reading has been a comeback for me these last few years. I used to be a voracious reader as a kid. And then I had to take a break during journalism because journalism makes you read a lot of other stuff. And then after I started She the People, I realized the lack of women-centric literature itself was quite a bit. And even now, I find that it's often packaged in very boring books when we could actually make it fun. But yeah, reading a lots of books. Yeah, a lot of books.
That's great. First of all, congrats on turning 40.
Thank you.
And I've always noticed you seem to be wearing many hats, whether it's authoring books or, running a company, and now you're learning to play drums. How do you manage? What is the secret behind your time management?
So, a few things I do credit myself with. One of them is time management, and the other is space management. I don't know how, but if you give me a space, I will just transform it by creating a lot of space from that little tiny space. And that's a bit like how I work with my time. I think there are some people who can really focus on one thing over a large amount of time. I'm not that person. I constantly need doses of inspiration, and my doses of inspiration come from doing these different things. So I would say I wouldn't be a holistic entrepreneur if I wasn't, let's say, doing a bunch of other things while I was becoming an entrepreneur. I wouldn't have been a great mom if I wasn't so busy with my work life. I think I'm good at a lot of these things because I'm good at different things. I feel that it's worked for me. I'm a specialist at one or two, but I'm a fairly decent generalist at others, and I don't blame myself for it at all. Um, I am not one of those who seeks to be a superwoman, that horrible term that we have propagated.
You sound like one to me. So,
So, this is what I'm trying to say, that the reason I think I want to do all those different things is not because it makes me seem like I have a lot to myself, it's so that I can do the two things that I'm really good at well, because I got all inspiration from all these other things. So I feel that we all function differently, and doing too many things, just I think it's my way of seeking some amount of vibrancy in my own thinking, my writing. Yeah, it's a bit like having conversations, right? Or being on travels. I mean, you really can't get one thing from one city. You have to go to like gazillion cities to get something out of different cities. And I think that's how I work on my time. Yeah.
okay.
And maybe I should have added that. I mean, I wouldn't have all this time without the massive support system that runs me. Like every single woman would say that. And I think I hear you when you say that. We all need that support system. And I don't have that much guilt and that much everything else. I just have it. The days I'll forgive myself, the days I'll just like watch Netflix and just feel better about it. That's it. Yeah.
I have to ask you, you were one of the journalists who covered the 26/11 terror attack. Could you take us through what that day was like for you?
So I was the first female journalist to land up at the Taj terror attack, and there was a male journalist with me who happens to be my husband. Both of us were at NDTV. That's where we had met, and then we got married there. And we literally decided to go to the Taj out of curiosity. And as fate would have it for us, we ended up being the first journalists reporting live when the first grenade blasted out of the Taj dome. Personally, for me, it was a moment of change in my life and in my career. And not because, let's say, people got to know me or that people till today see me in Bombay and say, hey, you did a really good job of reporting on the Taj attacks. But I think it reminded me as a journalist that you've got to put journalism and humanity at some amount of balance when you're reporting. So I must add, I was a really young journalist back in 2008. I had a total of like some 6 years of experience in reporting.
Okay.
And here I was in the throes of India's biggest attack ever without being trained to report on it. Right. Nick Gowing from BBC asked me the 2 mornings later, you're just roaming around there without a whatever, bulletproof jacket. And he was, of course, when he's sitting in his bulletproof tent while talking to me. I was like, this is India. People don't even care about giving you a bulletproof jacket. I'm more worried about people who are dying. But I hear where he came from, right? Like journalists in India are never trained to do all these things in the right way. You just land up there. The only thing that I felt I have I'm very thankful for is that when I was thrown into this position and had to take my own decisions as a 27-year-old, the thing was very clear to me that I have to be honest and truthful to what is going on. At the same time, I will not do something that hurts the sentiment of people. For the first 4 hours, we were two of us and one person walking up and down at the Gateway of India. And this one person was the manager of the Taj Hotel who lost his entire family there. Every time I saw his face, and I was thinking, like, the level of his grief, I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's impossible, right? And then I remember a politician just came in with all his tam jham, getting the lights on his face, and he was, I think, the ex-home minister of Maharashtra. And I wanted to tell him, like, for a moment, have you realized that people here have lost families and you're too busy doing your politics? So I think that just became like a moment that changed me and it changed my expectations. It shattered the images of journalists I'd admired for years. It shattered a lot of the journalism that I thought was credible. And it also helped me come out to recognize what is credible journalism. So, yeah, I mean, it was a game changer moment for just understanding what journalism should be and how much of journalism you should put ahead of humanity.
Yeah. That's actually a very good statement that you made. You've also interviewed so many interesting personalities like Warren Buffett or Christine Lagarde. Is there any anecdote that you have, a memorable anecdote that you would like to share?
I have a really memorable anecdote with Warren Buffett. Again, it's been sort of a reminder of what you should prioritize in your life when you meet people who are so interesting. It's quite a funny moment when I interviewed him in Bangalore, and I had again, the thing with me was I was always a very young journalist in these positions, often stuck with older journalists who had grayed their hair and who had no idea how this girl is getting away with things, or people are talking about what she's doing. So one of the places where I think I definitely got away with a lot was the Warren Buffett interview, because he came to India. He's Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
He's like got his couple of legs in full retirement, and he's just sort of enjoying his pie and coke wherever he goes. So what could I ask him that it's not written about, right? That's the first question I always ask myself. If this person is such a big personality, what is that one thing I can ask them that people don't ask him, right? So as I anticipated, I was with two very other senior journalists from my own organization. We're too busy finding out what's the next big stock, when will the world crash, when will it come off from its crash. And I was like, wow, I mean, like, who's waiting for these answers? Nobody with breathless sort of anticipation. So I just asked him, I said, if you're done with answering all these very complex questions, if I can start my interview by first asking you, show me what's in your wallet. And so he showed me his wallet, and his wallet was tattered. I mean, it had strings coming out of it.
Oh.
And I'm like, this rich man, the richest man in the world for many years, is carrying this tattered wallet. And then he showed me his entire family pictures, little pictures, little stamp sized pictures in his wallet of his family. And it's not like I anticipated any cash in it. I guess nobody does when you have plastic money. But just to see him get emotional about what his wallet contained and how he remembers his son, his grandkids, and what's happening with them. I mean, it's a lovely reminder of what these people really eventually aim for in life. And I think that spoke volumes to me, to chat with him about his wallet, his family, and what values he stood by, rather than, let's say, asking him what's his next bet, because I don't think anybody really was, sort of interested in that. Yeah, so I think I kind of enjoyed asking these questions. And even with Christine Lagarde, she has a great India connection. I think she's very, very fashionable, and she's super shrewd. So I think it was pretty interesting to talk to her about her being a woman in a political world where she's constantly judged for who she is. These conversations back in 2007 were not happening. So I think they were important to happen. Yeah.
That's really interesting. So, what's next for She the People?
So I think like I told you, we're reaching close to 200 million a year. I think for us is to take this number to 500 million sooner or later. But I think, I never look at things that in milestones for She the People, because I feel that the things that women are going through can't be clubbed together in milestones. It's not easy for any one of us to change the fate of other women just by a switch. So I think we want to move the needle constantly. I don't see the importance of throwing numbers or saying this is a milestone. It just sounds like a soundbite. But these are deeper issues. We need to fix them. And I guess it'll be very hard to fix any issue until we start raising every girl to be
Yeah.
herself. So, really, what's next for us is to change everything slowly and steadily, and make a big push for that process to pretty much snowball into a movement across India. Yeah.
Are you thinking about global as well?
So we are already global because we're digital. I mean,
I meant content wise.
yeah. For example, so we're already global in that sense. When Kamala Harris won the election, our story on her mother was the most read among all channels the world over. So Shamala Gopalan's story is the most well documented by She the People, for example. This is true for many other stories that we do of global personalities. For example, one of the Iranian doctors who lost her life early, as a corona warrior, is still the most well documented on She the People, and is constantly talked about. So it's an Iranian story, but that doesn't take away the fact that it was a woman who really changed the fate of how coronavirus was being fought in Iran. So I think for us, this perception, oh, you know what, today I'm going to be in Australia, UK, and South Africa. I mean, we're already there, right?
Yeah.
So I don't make a big deal about these things. I think for me, it's most important that we read more. We already sort of read every month by about 3 million plus, and that number is only rising. I see us looking at more languages, but not without sort of cementing and fortifying our position where we are. So I think the whole idea would be to rise and grow, and make a big difference to the mission that we have, which is that every woman deserves a voice and a platform to speak up. And that's who we are. We are not some social network. We are not some job site. We are not some this thing. We want you to come here and say what you want without thinking that you're going to be judged about it. And that is the most honest way of having women talk about who their authentic self is, will be, can be.
I agree completely. That's really a much needed platform. Yeah. And I hope in that way, She the People goes from strength to strength.
I always say, you and I are She the People.
Yes, I totally agree. Yeah. Thanks so much, Shaili. It was such an honor to have you on my podcast.
Thank you, Mahathi. And onwards and upwards, very much wishing you the best for this platform, and continue doing what you're doing so amazingly.
Thanks a lot. If you want to know more about She the People, do check out the website shethepeople.tv. And you can hit me up on Instagram at Maharani Talks. Catch you soon.